What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about.
Quite the developments we're having here today. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have a huge oil refinery in Canada being bought up by America. So much for energy independence. We've got Pierre Poilievre's by-election in Battle River Crowfoot under attack already. We've got more Donald Trump. We've got David Eby. Let's jump into this. So first up, this one coming from Blacklock's reporter. It says Mark Carney is not interested in NDP vote pact this time. Carney telling reporters, he says he expects Parliament to do what we need to do as a country. I think Carney's working on a dirty deal to flip some people over to the Liberals. Because you think about this, if he promises them like a cabinet position, that would take their salary from $211,000 up to $300,000. If Carney's able to do that and have these people stay in power for 4 years, all of them in power for 4 years, that's an extra $100,000 for 4 years. That's $400,000 essentially he could bribe these people with. So depending on the judicial recounts, Carney's going to need 3 or 4 people to flip from the NDP and then maybe go the route of Elizabeth May as speaker. It's going to be a clown show. Next up, we got this one. Condo prices in the GTA expected to drop 10% this year, says TD Economics. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. Nobody can afford these overpriced condos. Business in Canada sucks. The job market sucks. Everything sucks thanks to the Liberals. This one also from TD says Canada's rapidly slowing population is a red flag for rent growth. Yeah, I don't think rent growth is what we need in Canada. We need rent decline, unless you're a big landlord. As this guy says, condo sales going down, basement rents staying high. Yeah. This one coming out of Bloomberg says Sunco agreed to acquire Canadian fuel distributor Parkland for $9.1 billion in cash and stock. So much for building energy independence, building Canada strong. Newsflash, Mark Carney, you can't export electricity to the other side of the world. Hence, oil and gas, liquefied natural gas is the way to do that. Now, I'm not saying Mark Carney sold this, but this is a direct blow to Canadian energy independence. All the jokes in here, people talking about not buying American strawberries and elbows up. And as like someone said in here, it's not even been 1 week. So this deal here, Sunoco to acquire Parkland, $9.1 billion. The agreement comes after Parkland's strategic review driven by pressure from major shareholder Simpson Oil and activist investor Engine Capital. Sunoco says the merger is expected to close in the second half of the year and deliver over $250 million annual synergies by year 3. It plans to continue long-term investment in Parkland's Burnaby refinery, which produces low-carbon fuels for Canada's lower mainland. And apparently they're not moving their headquarters out of Calgary. They are keeping it there. But they could always change this, so I did look into these two companies, Simpson Oil and Engine Capital. I can't find any direct connections to Mark Carney, to Brookfield out of both of these companies, or the CEOs or the owners of these companies. Either way, this doesn't help our energy independence. And speaking of oil and gas, we've got BP's top sustainability exec to depart as ESG grift keeps dying a slow death. Giulia Chierchai will leave the company on June 1st, marking another high-profile exit on the obvious signpost in the oil giant sharp pivot away from green energy, environmental, social, and government's goals. So this is her here. So it says she joined BP in 2020 to help steer it towards a net zero future, was hired on by then CEO Bernard Looney, he's definitely a loony, wanting to push the company that way, and became the architect of the company's now defunct sustainability strategy. It is all collapsing in front of our eyes. What will Mark Carney do? Her departure will not trigger her replacement. Instead, her team will be folded into other businesses. They're just getting rid of it completely. Moving ahead here on this bombshell news, so we've got breaking. Longest ballot committee is preparing to flood Pierre Poilievre's riding with over 200 candidates. This has to stop. We have to fight this. This is not happening. So they released an email. I've been seeing this going around here. So it says they want to get at least 200 people signing up to go against Pierre Poilievre to interfere in democracy. We see more of the email here, and notice it says, please email us your full legal name first and surname, your phone number by Monday, May 12th. So you look at this initiative, they say they do this because politicians should not be in charge of election rules. There's an obvious conflict of interest. After all, what PM would change a system that brought them to power? The thing is these guys didn't target Mark Carney during the election. It was only Pierre Poilievre. If they were running candidates against Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh and Yves Francois Blanchet and Elizabeth May, then you could at least say they're nonpartisan, but clearly they just attacked the Conservatives. With that, we've got a new post here from Pierre Poilievre meeting Damien Carrick at his farm in Battle River Crowfoot. He gave a speech here, more shots here out on the farm. Damien Carrick is legitimately a farmer. This is good stuff here. And this isn't Pierre Poilievre just showing up at a province that he doesn't know at all and running in a riding. Pierre Poilievre grew up in Alberta. He's an Alberta boy, just like me. With that said, who's behind the longest ballot committee? It's a pair of brothers. Thomas Simieritsch, as posted by Moncton News Chaser, it's his name. He's not even 20. He's already causing carnage. I wonder why he didn't try this on Carney. If we take a look at this article here, Kieran Simieritsch, the fight to make running for office affordable and fair. So this pair of brothers here, Kieran and Thomas, founded this committee. It says here, Kieran, 37, founder of Longest Ballot Committee in Winnipeg, played a key role in eliminating the $1,000 deposit. So it used to cost $1,000 to run a candidate, and these brothers were able to get rid of this, and now that's why they're able to run so many candidates. So it says here in June 2017, Kieran argued in court that the $1,000 deposit discriminated against ordinary citizens who couldn't afford it. The court ruled in his favor, resulting in the removal of the deposit required. This change made running for office more accessible to everyone, not just those who could afford the deposit. He's quoted saying here, I'm proud of getting rid of the $1,000 deposit for candidates used to have to pay. And he goes on to say, I worked in a law firm. I knew the basics on how to handle the situation. So he worked in a law firm. He was able to work that angle to get rid of this. Now they've been running dozens of candidates since. It says since 2021, Kieran and his brother Thomas have been leading the Longest Ballot Committee, working to address gaps in the Canadian democratic system. Goes on to say here, many criticized the lengthy ballot in Toronto St. Paul's by-election for causing delays, but Elections Canada attribute the delay to the large number of candidates typically resulted are announced within 2 to 3 hours of the polls closing. But in this instance, the final result was not revealed until 5 a.m. This is costing us a lot of money, manpower, the actual ballots themselves. So this pair of brothers, this one 37, started the whole thing. Now his brother here, Thomas, 20 years old, wreaking havoc on our electoral system. And we can see here, so Thomas was the name of the official agent who's registered here. These are all of the ones that are registered under Thomas. And if we look under, say, Pierre Poilievre right here, Roger Graves was the person who registered him. You can see here Dana Peters registered the Green Party member. Eric Hallam registered Bruce Fanjoy. But then you've got Thomas here registering all of these against Pierre Poilievre. Now, why did they target Pierre Poilievre? Well, this CBC article says longest ballot protest targets conservative leader. Group said it also intended to overload ballot in Carney's riding, but ran out of time. Just didn't have enough time to do that one. But don't worry, they got time now to go after Pierre Poilievre again in Battle River Crowfoot. We really wanted to do both leaders, he said. Things just didn't add up in favor for that. We're disappointed to have to drop it. I'm not buying that. He's quoted here saying our point is having politicians in charge of the elections is very straightforward conflict of interest, and they should hand that responsibility over to an independent, nonpartisan body, Thomas said. The problem with this, Thomas, it looks like you're directly attacking the Conservatives, and considering what he's doing in Battle River Crowfoot, this seems like election interference while technically still legal. As this post here mentions, he's not even 20. This does line up with this University of Waterloo, Thomas, I'm not going to try to say his last name again, undergraduate student. So it does line up that Thomas could be under 20. His older brother here, 37 years old. These are the faces of this disgraceful situation in Canada. Meanwhile, we've got this. There's a new rival in Battle River. Elect Justin Trudeau, Battle River Crowfoot. Yeah, that's never going to happen. Next up, we've got the Liberals' policies coming back to bite us. As Table Salt posts here, they literally told us not to implement Trudeau's stupid Netflix tax. So this is a digital service tax we're talking about here. Canada enacts digital service tax amid risk of U.S. trade retaliation. 3% levy will apply to revenue from companies that provide digital services to Canadians or sell Canadian user data. This goes to big giants like Netflix or whatever, and then they just pass that along to us. The Liberals are awful. And not only that, it's pissing off America. And as Table Salt says here, it's not 3% profit, it's 3% of revenue, which is a much bigger number. We also got Trump administration says it will pay immigrants in the U.S. illegally $1,000 to leave the country. This is a serious crackdown on illegal immigration. This is essentially, as it says here, a way to self-deport. You get some money, but you got to go. Trump today asked about his upcoming meeting with Mark Carney.
If they're going to have. Yeah, please.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want. We have something that they all want. China wants to make a deal very badly. You see what's happening to China? China's being decimated, and I don't want that to happen. But they have to make a fair deal. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We were losing think of it, on our trade policies with Biden. We're losing $5 billion a day. I think Josh, as a great businessman, would not let that happen too long, right? How many groups can lose $5 billion a day? If you lose $5 billion one day, that's the end of that company, right? You're fired. He says, you're fired. Get out of here. So we essentially did that, and we have it down to a very low number. We're doing really well. Really well.
Next up, we got Olivia Chow talking about Donald Trump's 100% tariffs going on the film industry in Canada and how it's going to affect it.
1,000 jobs with $2.6 billion economic impact. And nowhere else in the world are there places that have this kind of diverse talents that we have right here in the city of Toronto. So it's going to devastate the American film industry. Hollywood need to rebuild because of the fire, but it really shouldn't come and devastate the film industry by doing the 100% tariff. Now, it's not clear what form when President Trump talk about foreign films. These are American films, and with a lot of production being made in Toronto.
Do you think it's even possible, considering how many hands go into making one film?
I can't imagine how difficult it would be, because whether it's from designing the stage or doing the editing or doing the sound.
It's all too integrated. It's really going to be quite complicated. So are they going to put tariffs on final products? Are they going to put tariffs on specific things? Is it editing? Is it this? Is it that? Casting? It's a big blow to this industry.
Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. We're here at Pinewood Studios, where major movies like Squad have been filmed, and this studio, along with many others in Toronto, Vancouver, and right across the globe, they could be devastated by Donald Trump's decision to order 100% tariffs on all productions outside the U.S. You mentioned that Canada is dubbed Hollywood North, and for good reason. Along with the incredible crews, there are also many government tax credits which lure big productions like The Incredible Hulk to be filmed here. In fact, according to ACTRA, which is the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television, and Radio Artists, there were more than 400 productions in Ontario alone in 2023, which created 25,000 jobs and spurred $1.8 billion in economic activity. In his rationale for applying this tariff, Donald Trump says productions being drawn to other countries is a national security threat. It's also worth noting that before Trump took the White House, he appointed 3 long-standing supporters as special envoy to Hollywood: Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and Jon Voight. I want you to take a listen to Mayor Olivia Chow's reaction to Trump's tariff threat, as well as the founder of Prospero Pictures, which is another movie studio in Toronto.
We have a very active film office. We'll come together and come out with a strategy. I am
Olivia Chow's not coming out with anything. Who elected her?
sure the Prime Minister understands the economic benefits that the film industry, not just for Toronto, but also in Vancouver.
What element of the cost of production are you putting a tariff on? How are you calculating this tariff?
Yeah.
It's nonsensical. And nevertheless, it may well have a chilling effect on the level of production.
Now, as has been the case with many Trump announcements in the past, it's unclear how these tariffs will actually be implemented. Will they apply to streaming service productions? Also, how will they be calculated if productions are split between the U.S. and other countries?
It's all very complicated. Is it just going to be blanket tariffs? Who knows? And we've got David Eby coming out today announcing a clean energy grid. More big projects that fall in line with Mark Carney's net zero agenda.
We have a generational opportunity here to be a clean energy superpower, to contribute to the vision of Canada as an energy superpower in our own way here in British Columbia, while protecting our province, but also our planet from pollution, ensuring that we're using our clean electricity to build. Now, I think there are many British Columbians looking around at infrastructure in our province who see that we have been living on infrastructure built by our grandparents.
This guy's an absolute disaster to our province. And he's an important character to note if you live anywhere across Canada, because he's just as radical as Mark Carney in the net zero agenda. So he's already becoming a close ally, even though he's NDP. He's trying to give himself draconian powers to control everything in the province without it going to BC Parliament. You'll see that in the next clip. How is he planning to build prosperity in BC when you can't export electricity? That's why we should be doing liquefied natural gas, because we can send that over to other countries. They can buy that from us. I understand building hydropower to power our own houses, our own electricity needs. We're only 41 million people in Canada. There are billions of people around the world. This guy is an awful premier. He shouldn't spend another day in the seat.
Whether it's roads and sewers or highways or train tracks or
So he just goes on to ramble about our infrastructure falling apart, takes no accountability for his failed leadership.
That allows us to build electricity faster, transmission lines, as well as generation right across the province. There are 9 wind and 1 solar project that have been approved under that call for power. That's enough to power 500,000 homes. It represents $6 billion in private capital spending. It reflects 2,000 jobs a year during construction. 8 of the projects have majority First Nations ownership. And that means $3 billion in assets owned by First Nations. This will provide clean, cheap electricity to grow projects in our province and to reduce our carbon pollution at the same time as we produce clean materials that we know the world needs.
So that there sums up David Eby. He just cares about First Nations and reducing carbon. He doesn't care about Canadians and what all of us actually need to be prosperous in this province. Next up, take a look at this. This is Bill 7 in British Columbia. We don't want Mark Carney getting a whiff of this because it's draconian powers that David Eby's been trying to give himself.
British Columbians, friends, a few weeks ago, David Eby moved forward Bill 7, which was a complete affront to democracy. It gave him unlimited authority and ability to change any law, to change any budget, and to do so without any oversight from the legislature. Because of the pushback from the Conservative Party of British Columbia, and because you joined us in that fight, we were able to bring changes to Bill 7 to make sure the worst parts of that were not implemented. But David Eby promised to the people of British Columbia that he would bring it back in another form, and this is what we are seeing. Now we're seeing Bill 14 and Bill 15, an energy bill as well as an infrastructure bill, to re-implement those components of Bill 7 that were so offensive, to give him the ability to move forward any change to environmental assessment, to infrastructure, any project that he deems of interest to move forward without oversight, without environmental assessment, without the need for even any input from the public. To me, this is an affront. No other jurisdiction in the country is doing this. There is no need for David Eby to do this. We have the democratic process. He could bring the legislature back at any point, move these things forward appropriately, make sure that things are done right. David Eby and the NDP are not happy with the idea of democracy and using the legislature.
This should throw up red flags for every Canadian across the country here. The fact that a premier is trying to circumnavigate our constitution and give himself draconian powers is unreal. He needs to be thrown out of office immediately. At this point, with all this tension building, what is going to happen tomorrow when Mark Carney finally meets with Donald Trump?